The Penn State Nittany Lions are traveling to Michigan to take place in what's definitely the biggest Big Ten game so far this year. Michigan 7-point favorites at home. These two teams are really similar. They kind of have a similar quarterback, two similar defenses. So it's definitely going to be a great game. With that being said, Drew, kicking it to you, we're going to start off with Michigan. Undefeated this year, high expectations. They're ranked number 4. What are the keys to victory for this team going into this game?
Yeah, so Michigan's played really well this season. I've been impressed with how they've looked, and they actually had Cade McNamara starting for him at quarterback earlier in the season and then made the switch over to McCarthy, and I think McCarthy's definitely giving the offense a little bit more juice. Michigan obviously had 3 non-con games against Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. Obviously, all of those were blowout games. Michigan's offense looked really, really good. And then they had the games against Maryland, Iowa, and Indiana. The Maryland game was a little bit of a scare, a little bit closer than I think most people anticipated it to be, but I think Maryland's a better team than most people give them the credit for as well. And then 2 wins on the road in the conference against Iowa and Indiana. Relatively, I think both those games they won by 2 possessions or more. Pretty impressive start for the Michigan Wolverines. Statistically, Michigan looks like a really, really good football team, especially on the defensive end. You can look at almost any defensive stat. Michigan's really top 6 or better. The defenses look really, really well. And the offense, the offense looks really good, but it's kind of hard. I feel like some of these stats are boosted a little bit just because of the 3 non-con games they played earlier in the season. But nonetheless, I mean, you could still look and watch a Michigan game and tell that they are still very, very talented. And I think both of these teams match up really well to each other. Both of them are kind of similar. They both have a really good running back. Both these teams have a quarterback that's not really an elite playmaker, but he's not a guy who's going to turn the ball over a bunch and make a lot of mistakes and lose you games. And they're accurate when they have time in the pocket. So I mean, it's just almost like mirrored images of each other, and this is why I love the Big Ten. The Big Ten's a legitimate football conference. There are a lot of good teams in the Big Ten: Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and the talent across the board. It's pretty. I would say Ohio State has the edge over these 2 teams, but Michigan and Penn State are definitely not that far behind Ohio State. So this is definitely one of the biggest games in the Big Ten thus far, and huge implications, I think, for a Big Ten team getting into the playoffs. I think the winner of this game really puts themselves in good position. Obviously, they're going to have to go through Ohio State, which is going to be no easy task, but the road to the playoffs, I think, starts here in this game. But going to Penn State, Aiden, I know you've watched a little bit of film on them. What about Penn State's offense has been kind of impressive to you?
Yeah, definitely the player that sticks out to me is true freshman running back Singleton. He's probably the best freshman running back in college football, but they got a stable of running backs that they use, and they really use the run game well to set up play action off of that, and that's really where their whole offense expands from there. And definitely against this good Michigan defense, like you mentioned, they love to send pressure on third down, and they're not scared to play man coverage. They play man coverage a lot at any point on the field. So the run game and getting the run game established is going to be imperative for Penn State because, like you mentioned, Clifford, he's a good quarterback when he has time to throw and he has a clean pocket and he has time to make reads and throw to open receivers. But whenever you're playing this Michigan team, when they're in man-on-man coverage, they're playing tight, and when they send pressure, they are coming. I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say on third down they send pressure probably about 75% of the time, which it's a big tendency, but that's their identity. It's just about stopping it, and no one's been able to so far. But strength of schedule as far as Michigan goes, it is going to be an issue for me. Like you mentioned, both these teams are really similar, but Penn State's proven to me that they can get it done against some top-tier college teams. Now, I know Auburn hasn't looked good in a couple of weeks, but it's still Auburn. They're going to come out and play tough every single week. But Penn State, they're definitely going to have to get this run game going, and they'll be able to set up the play action off of that if they can keep this defense honest and not allow them to be able to send so much pressure.
Yeah, one thing I really like about Penn State is they have a good running game and a good defense, and in my opinion, those types of teams can travel well because having a good run game and a good defense will travel on the road regardless of the environment they play in. I mean, we saw it in the Auburn game. I know Auburn's not a great team, but they handed Auburn one of the worst home losses in a decade. So I honestly think that was a really impressive win, and they did that by running the ball and playing good defense. So I think that really helps the offense to have a good running game, to take the pressure off a quarterback, especially a guy like Sean Clifford who's not an elite passer. But when the team kind of has to play the run, I think it really opens up the field, especially the intermediate routes where I think Sean Clifford really excels at. But getting into the prediction, Michigan's a 7-point home favorite, and I just think that's a little high. I think Michigan and Penn State match up really well. I think they're pretty equally balanced across the board. The biggest knock, I think, on James Franklin and Penn State, though, is they haven't really been able to win the big games, especially conference games, and they've had a couple close scares this year. The Purdue game is one that comes to mind. So Penn State's had, its moments where they've kind of not played up to their standards in these conference games, and I think James Franklin and Penn State really need this win. I think this would be huge for the program. They really have to get that, game defining win, or team defining win, I should say, to really boost their confidence moving forward, because they're going to need every bit of it, especially when they go on, and play these Michigan State, Ohio State, and the other good teams in the Big Ten. The Big Ten has a lot of good teams other than, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State. So, Penn State's going to have to ride on some confidence, and I think they can get a lot of that off of this win. But I just think Michigan, them being at home, I know what I said about Penn State, their game could travel well on the road. I don't know how much the home crowd's going to be a factor in this game. I know it's going to be rowdy. I know Michigan fans are going to show up, but it is a noon game. But I just think Michigan's honestly the better team in this game. I think they have a little more. I just want to say they have a couple advantages in some positions. I think they have a little bit more talent in certain areas. I think Jim Harbaugh is a really good coach. And Michigan, J.J. McCarthy, he's looked really well this year. I think he's comfortable. I don't think he's going to be rattled too much by this Penn State defense. I think Michigan gets the job done, but I'm going to take Penn State to cover.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh has done a great job, and it's really evident to me in how this offense has performed with J.J. McCarthy and the quarterback, not controversy, but kind of issues that they've had. They've been able to disguise the quarterback's weaknesses really well, and I think as far as McCarthy goes, his D-ball accuracy is not good. Even when he has wide open receivers, he's throwing it behind them, and in that Maryland game, it caused them a touchdown, and they only got 3 points out of that drive. When if he would have thrown the ball perfectly, or thrown even a decent ball, the receiver would have walked into the end zone. But as far as my prediction goes, I know that Penn State's traveling to Michigan. That's definitely going to have a huge factor. But you said it, and it's a great point, and it's the main point behind my pick. The run game and defense always travels. Doesn't matter where you play. And that Penn State run game, it's really, really good. This Michigan team hasn't really been tested. They got popped in the mouth against Maryland, and they kind of got lucky because Tua's little brother got hurt. So, they probably still would have won that game, but it was really close up until the fourth quarter. I just think that Penn State's going to get this run game established, and defensively, as long as McCarthy's uncomfortable, he's not going to make the right read. So, and this Penn State team's young, and you mentioned they haven't been able to get that big win to put them back on the map as a dominant team in college football, but I think that this is the game, so I'm going to take Penn State to win in a close one.
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a fun game to watch. Top 10 matchups are always really interesting. We have a lot of big games this week in college football. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video, guys. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for those of y'all who have subscribed to our channel. We had 205 subscribers heading into this week, and now we're at 230. So that's definitely a huge jump for the channel, and we can't thank you guys enough for your support. Be sure to like this video, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, comment, and share the video, and we'll see you in the next one.